Hey there. Let's talk about something that's on a lot of our minds. Paying for healthcare as we get older. The costs can look, well, pretty scary. But what if there's a smarter way to handle it? Let's dive in and figure this out.
So this is really the heart of the issue, right? You work your whole life, you save up for retirement, and then bam, the cost of staying healthy starts to climb just when you're trying to live on a fixed income. It feels like a trap, but it's a puzzle we can solve.
And this isn't just some vague worry. The numbers are real. Take a look at this. This is what happens with typical health insurance premiums. In your early 30s, it's, manageable. But by your 60s, it's more than tripled. And in your 80s, whoa, it just skyrockets to over $250,000 baht every single year. How are you supposed to handle that in retirement? So, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the challenge of paying for future health. Then, we'll unpack a concept called UDR and pit it against the traditional way of doing things. After that, we'll get to the really juicy part, the lifetime cost difference. And finally, we'll have an honest talk about the risks involved. All right, first up, paying for future health. How do we even begin to plan for tomorrow's costs today? Well, the way most of us do it is pretty simple. It's basically a pay-as-you-go system. You pay your premium, and every year, it gets a little more expensive. It's predictable, sure, but it's exactly what leads to those huge bills down the road. So that begs the question, is there another option? And it turns out there is. It's a totally different way of thinking called UDR, and it's a new approach to this very old problem. Okay, UDR stands for Unit Deducting Rider. I know, it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Think of it like this. It's an add-on or a rider to an insurance policy that's also an investment. And instead of you paying the rising insurance bill directly, the cost gets paid automatically every month by selling off tiny little pieces or units of that investment. So here's how that works in two basic steps. 1, you pay a single fixed premium. The key is it stays the same for life. 2, the real cost to insure you, which, remember, still goes up as you age, is quietly paid out of that investment fund behind the scenes every month. So you get a predictable bill while your investment fund does the heavy lifting. Okay, so let's put these two ideas head to head. In one corner, we have the new contender, UDR, and in the other, the traditional champ, PPR, or Premium Paying Rider. That's just the fancy name for the pay-as-you-go method. This is really a showdown between two completely different ways of thinking about paying for things. And this slide really lays it all out. With the traditional PPR on the right, your premium keeps climbing as you age, and you have to pay it all directly out of your pocket. But with UDR on the left, you pay that one fixed premium for life, and the actual cost is covered by a combination of that premium and your growing investment fund. And this is where it gets really clever. Check out this crossover point. When you're younger, say 37, your fixed UDR premium is way more than the actual cost of insurance, or COR. So that extra money, over 28,000 baht, isn't lost. It gets dumped right into your investment fund to grow. Fast forward to age 61, and now the tables have flipped. Your fixed premium is less than what it costs to insure you. And that's the magic trick. The fund that you've been building for decades now steps in to pay that 12,000 baht difference for you. So, all this fury leads us to the most important part, the lifetime cost difference. Because this is where the numbers really tell the story. Now I know what you're thinking. If you just look at the first year, the traditional PPR plan looks like a no-brainer. It's less than half the price. You're paying just under 20,000 baht instead of almost 48,000. So why on earth would anyone pick the more expensive one? Because that first-year price tag, it's not the real question. The real question, the one that truly matters, is this. What's the total amount of money you're going to pay out of pocket over your entire life, from age 31 all the way to 89? Well, if you stick with that cheaper, pay-as-you-go method, the grand total comes out to a whopping nearly 6 million baht. That's the true price of that low initial premium. And the total for the UDR method? A little over 2.8 million baht. Let that sink in. That is a lifetime savings of over 3 million baht. By choosing to pay more upfront to build that investment engine, you could literally cut your total healthcare premium costs in half. Okay, a 3 million baht saving sounds incredible. Maybe a little too incredible. And you're right to think that. So let's talk about the catch. There's always a catch. And in this case, it's all about investment risk. See, that huge potential savings doesn't just appear out of thin air.
It's powered by the growth, the returns on that investment fund, which means the success of this whole strategy is tied directly to how the market performs over a very, very long time.
And this slide shows you just how much of a difference that makes. If your investments only eke out a 1% average return, your fund runs dry by age 79, and you'll have to start paying more. At 3%, it gets you to age 85. But if you can achieve a 5% average return, which is pretty reasonable for a long-term balanced investment, the fund not only covers all your costs for life, but it's projected to actually grow to over 2.2 million baht by the time you're 89.
So, the most important thing to remember here is that a UDR isn't a savings account. It's an investment-powered plan. And whether it works out depends entirely on getting a decent rate of return over many, many years. Phew! Okay, we've gone through a lot here, from how premiums work to the risks of the stock market. So let's bring it all home. What does this actually mean for you and your planning?
Let's just boil it all down. The UDR idea is simple. You pay a flat premium, and an investment fund handles the rising costs. The big upside? You could save millions over your lifetime. The downside? It costs more to get started, and its success is tied to how well your investments do. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. When you're planning for your future health, are you looking at the year one price tag, or are you planning for the total lifetime cost? It's something worth considering. Thanks for tuning in.